Hello and welcome to ADC Live. Today is Wednesday, September 3rd. We're happy to be here and thank you all for joining. Ivo, how are you doing today?
Great. Thanks a lot also for everybody who will be watching this video with a replay. Hi, thank you.
So today we have a special topic about LumApps metadata. We call it metadata mania because there's a lot of always talks about metadata, what it is, how it's used, what are some of the best practices, what are the areas in LumApps that you can use it in. So this is meant to be a little bit of a surface level, but also we're going to go a little bit deeper for those of you who are already know metadata, so you can stick around and see what suits you best. First, pro tip of the week. Ivo, do you want to tell us about this one?
Yeah, sure. I was thinking this week about how do we update styles, custom styles, and custom scripts across many different sites. And so I wanted to share that thanks to the LumApps API, in fact, you can apply your style, custom styles and custom scripts to many different sites at the same time. And so I wanted to describe how do we do this. So in terms of um, traceability, for example, we store all of our custom scripts and custom styles in a Git repository. That is a developer tool. Git is a developer tool. And this tool allows us to keep track of what has been changed, by whom, and when. And then we have developed a script that allows us to upload the most recent styles to all the sites of a given organization. And we can use this across many of our different customers. So this is a kind of helpful for many reasons because this allows you, for example, to enforce a governance model. So, for example, every change in the style needs to be reviewed by a designer. That allows you to roll out automated updates. Like every time that a new commit has been reviewed and hits the main branch, then that change is being um, applied to all the sites of a given organization, for example. And last, of course, the traceability that I was mentioning at the beginning, that is about keeping track of what has been changed and when and how, so that you can eventually revert every change. So that's a very powerful thing that you can do thanks to the LumApps native API. And yeah, of course, we will be happy to share that and to help you manage many different sites because we know what pain is that. So that's it. But Misha, I think that you wanted to say who we are, right?
I did, and I also wanted to. I'm just a question on this one. How much time does it save you? I mean, let's. I think we have at least
Oh,
one customer that has multiple sites, and we applied multiple of these CSS across all the nine sites, right? So how much time
yeah,
does
of
it
course.
save to?
In fact, our customer has not only many different sites, but it has also many different organizations. In LumApps, you may have several organizations, one for your intranet and one for your extranet, for example. And so, in that case, that customer has multiple organizations. And each one of those organizations has several sites. And so we manage if I'm not wrong, 12 different sites in one of those organizations, and a bit less in the second organization that they have. And so, you have just to think how many clicks do you have to do to open the custom style settings and to copy and paste those scripts, right? Here, it takes me about 1 minute to ship all the, let's say, 20 sites belonging to this customer. So it's very, very quick and it's very powerful. So, personally, being a developer, I love it. but, I think that also designers could love this way of proceeding. Yes, of course, and there is also another advantage is that this script allows also me to detect whether somebody accessed the custom script via the LumApps back office and understand what did they change precisely, and to keep track also of those changes. So to integrate spurious changes that have happened directly on the site and bring them back to our main branch. So,
which is
well,
really great because there's no audit natively out of the box in LumApps to see who went to the back office or who went to the site style settings, made changes, right? That's
right.
very important for somebody to know, for admins, from a security perspective, from just a monitoring perspective. So having that in place solves a lot of problems and can answer potentially a lot of questions about access and changes. So that's very valuable. Thanks, Yo, for giving us this pro tip. I think it's a very, very valuable one. So yes, about ADC. So who we are a boutique firm. We're here to help with any LumApps problems, solutions. We kind of cover the full scope of LumApps, front end, back end, everything in the middle. You can imagine both Ivo and I come from a LumApps background. We're both ex-Lumies. And our goal really is to make LumApps very simple and a very happy experience, despite how complicated it is. And, it's as rightfully so, it's an evolving product with a lot of mergers and a lot of new acquisitions that it had. So our goal really is to really assess the use cases and the strategy and what is the best way for your users to use it, for your employees to consume content, whether it's through integrations or experience design or through strategy, and really make that experience very clean, simple, and effective. We have a bunch of extensions in the marketplace. We have over 34, 35 now and growing. You can actually go and learn about these extensions on our ADC documentation site. It's a public site. Simply go to docs.adc.dev. You come to the site. You can search for extensions, or you can kind of search all widgets. Go to this tab here and very simply search for something, or search for, let's say, follow follow interest. So we have some latest follow interest extensions or surveys. You can do that as well. So we have, and you can kind of just browse through it and see what we have and what you have questions about. There's a lot of good things here that we built for customers, and we might build something for you as well if you like. So just give us a shout and let us know what some of your gaps are. So now, Ivo, today this is something very different. We don't usually we go into what we're excited about. Today, because it's metadata, we're going to do a trivia. So a Lumas
Wow.
trivia. So the trivia is about metadata. How many different functions can metadata have in LumApps? Is it 2, 3, 5, or 8? How many functions does LumApps metadata have in LumApps? Ivo.
I bet 8. I don't know why, but well, that seems a lot, right?
So it's a very, very good guess. And there's that actually is the correct answer. It is 8. Now,
Whoa!
now this is not an official. I just want to give a caveat. Lumas doesn't officially say there's 8 different layers and functions that metadata has. Just based on our own knowledge and experience of LumApps, the product, and we had experience with LumApps at least for 8 years now, and counting, we see
As
that
many as the functions of metadata in LumApps. That's wonderful. Did you search for that?
and there's a lot of use cases for that. So again, not documented. This is our own insight, personal insight into this, and you'll see why in a second. So first, what exactly is LumApps metadata? How different is it from other metadatas that are out there? So traditionally, metadata is something that gives you metadata about content, about timestamps and about authors and about publication dates and about all these other things. That's what metadata traditionally is. And obviously, Lumos has a lot of metadata about all the usage and all the data that it collects about the users to kind of bring information in a personalized way. Metadata specifically that we're talking about here today is not that. It's not that contextualized data about content. But really, metadata today is something that helps. It's a type of label, or think of it as a tag. And I don't want to use the word tags because as some of you know who are LumApps users, LumApps also has something called tags, which is not metadata but similar. So metadata really is a label that helps categorize LumApps content and add some levels of structure. It can be applied to some contents, not others. We'll get into that in a second. But at a high level, that's what metadata is. It's a label to categorize and create structured content within LumApps.
For a purist, can we say that this is a taxonomy?
I would say this is within with the best definition from LumApps perspective. This is definitely I would say defines the taxonomical structure within LumApps. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Before we get into all the 8 different functions that we defined, I want to really just kind of do a Venn diagram and vent a little bit to show you where does metadata kind of hit, which areas of LumApps, and then how it's applied to the overall site structure in general. So here, metadata in this circle, you can have site metadata, you can have platform metadata applied to across all the sites in your entire LumApps platform. You can impact mobile streams. You can set up streams on mobile to deliver certain types of contents with specific metadata only. Metadata is applied to directory entries, which are like catalogs of links, as Ludo. I don't know if he's watching, but Ludo famously calls it catalog of links. You can apply metadata there. Governing contents, which we'll get into, structuring content through our metadata itself, segments, templates, content types, all these kind of things. That's where metadata can be applied. And specifically so in a site, a LumApps site, there's other areas within a site where metadata does not apply, like spaces, communities, tags, media, spaces, or navigations, these kind of things. Um, but these are this layer in between. That's where metadata and sites kind of come together. Um, and so I wanted to kind of give this diagram first. Now, so here, this is something that was inspired by one of the slides that LumApps put together. And I think that Andy did this in the LumApps training module. I redid it just in a way that I think makes more sense, at least from my perspective. But here are all the kind of functions that LumApps metadata has, the famous 8 functions. And here you'll see more because some of these are repetitive based on the type of persona who's consuming the metadata. So first, content discovery, very simple, right? Metadata helps end users, your employees, come and use search to discover content, to filter on content by metadata. We'll see, by the way, it's not only for contents, or at least not only page type contents. Also, you can filter on profile attributes, right? These kind of things you can also use for metadata. From metadata, users can use metadata to opt in to certain types of notifications. For example, interests, following interests is one type of an example where you can use metadata that can be leveraged to get notified about certain interests that are created by communications teams or knowledge teams, right? And you'll be notified about a certain type of knowledge asset or comms news that's created to be notified immediately once it's created. So metadata allows you to have that contextualization. It helps end users understand where does this content belong in the in the ecosystem, in your employee experience ecosystem that they're consuming right now. Because sometimes a user, they can come to a page and the page has a title, great, has a picture, great, has the author, fantastic, right? It has a bunch of information about the page, the policy, whatever it is. But who's the owner of the page, right? You don't know. So metadata helps you create and see that specific context of the page, and this way the user is less confused about who the owner is, where the page belongs to in the overall ecosystem. And so that's one of the great benefits and functions that LumApps metadata has. And that's for the end user. For the contributors, the folks who create content, the power users, right, the content news creators, the knowledge creators, right, all those things, obviously they benefit from the context of it as well, because they want to make sure that you as a user, as an employee who's reading the context, who's reading the content, understands what is the context of that content. That if it's a policy type of document, it says policy. If it's a news that's coming from a certain team, that's contextualized somewhere there as well. So that's an important part as well. That's a repetitive function of both for both users, employees, and contributors. Content delivery. Metadata also allows you to deliver content to one or multiple areas of the site. And we'll see it in a second, where you create a content, and for example, you want it to be delivered into a specific team area and into a specific landing page, right? And as long as that space, community, and the landing page, content type landing page is configured with the content list to receive contents using that metadata, that content can be delivered very easily to multiple areas at once. And it's kind of like a one and done approach. You create it once and it's delivered to this site and that site and this uh, archive site and then this space, right? As long as the configuration is there, it's very, very simple and very effective. And finally, analytics, we'll see as well how metadata can also impact you gaining better insights about the content, and not just one specific content, right? But let's say you have a use case, a whole use case of, let's say, onboarding contents, right? Or a human resource, or or specific broader scope HR contents, or maybe a more narrow scope of like a documentations around specific autonomy hub, or about a specific knowledge area, right? So labeling that with metadata not only helps users benefit by contextualization, but also you as a contributor, somebody who's creating that knowledge content, can go into the back office, into analytics, and filter on that specific metadata area and see all the contents by that metadata, right? And what are the numbers, what are the consumption numbers, um, uh, 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 how many folks are consuming that entire area of content in the back office. And we'll have some slides about this as well. Finally, for the site admins, these are obviously folks. Some of you might be site admins on this webinar, who are interested in using metadata if you aren't already. And so, site admins, what you care about most is making sure content is clean. There's some structure to it. If I go into the back office, I can easily go in and find certain types of contents. So the architecture piece is important. I also care about structuring data from a findability perspective. That's something we'll talk a little bit more about in the next webinar in 2 weeks. But the architecture and the taxonomy is important for me as an admin, for findability as far as management. Governance is a very important piece as well. We'll talk about how metadata is used with LumApps roles, and we also have a specific dedicated session on roles as well. In I think in about a month or two from now, a month and a half. And finally, metadata is used for segments and attributes, and really allowing you to consume contents and find users based on specific profile needs, right? Which we'll consider. So these are all little areas, 8 areas, because 2 of these are repetitive, that metadata can really benefit your site. Ivo, did I miss anything?
No, I didn't. I think that you're good here.
Okay, perfect. So, and by the way, if you have questions, please go ahead on LinkedIn, add your comments there, and we'll feature them here. We can even answer them real time. Both Ivo and I are monitoring your the posts and the comments. So please go ahead and ask your comments anytime, and we'll do our best to. We'll make sure we see them and we'll address them. So first, content discovery. Very simple, right? Somebody goes in, they filter on content in the content filter widget, they discover the content there, or they go into a search page. Depending on whether you have a Luma's native search, or if you have a custom search, that page, the search might be a little different. But metadata helps users narrow down on the content. Now, of course, practically speaking, right? And those of you who are watching who have been with LumApps for a couple of years, if not more, the obvious question is, well, how often do users actually use metadata to discover content, right? Most folks today, especially today with AI, they kind of just go in, they want to type something really fast, search first mentality. I don't want to go extra clicks, just go in, type something, and get it delivered to me directly, right? That's kind of the most what most users do today. So they rarely use search for metadata to discover and to filter content on, but nonetheless, that is a very important functionality, not only in the front end, but also in the back office as well. So I would, even though, yes, it's not the primary use case, but it is a use case which is very used especially by content by power users, folks who are more familiar with LumApps, and on the back end by admins, as we'll see shortly. Also,
That will also
users.
be a topic that we will be talking about the next time, right?
That's exactly the topic we'll be talking about next time, about structured content with metadata and how you can extend it out. And another interesting thing is here. In fact, let me go and show. So here you can also uh, find. So here we have a employee directory under employee resources, and for example, here this is a pre-filtered search. You can use metadata to also feed in attributes. So for example, let's say, so these, I'll be honest, I put these manually. I already have metadata set up. So I created a custom attribute on user directory and this map to this metadata. But you you might be much more organized in your organization. You might have, let's say, you might have certifications or skills that are coming through AD, right? And actually, data integrity is probably clean data. It's honest data. You might have integrations with the Chebo or something, where somebody gets certified with something, and then that might go feed in to your AD, and maybe you want to bring that in to your LumApps. This way, if somebody wants to go and search for a profile, they need help with some kind of a task, and or they need to find a person for a specific activity, right? They can go ahead and use metadata here to filter on users who are certified for certain things or have certain skill sets, right? So that's a really nice use case to use, assuming again you have that data in your AD, or in this case, we have it done manually. So we have a setup that any user can come in, and like in this case for Evo, obviously I'm the admin, so I can do it, but I can go in, I can edit Evo's profile, and I can say, okay, Evo is certified with all these things, right? And you can add these in manually, and Evo can do it himself. And really, anybody in the org, you can set up your user directory in such a way that anybody can go in, update these fields, and so for anybody else to find, consume, and filter on those users. So that's a nice way to also use metadata for your employees to consume and discover people, not just content. And contextualization, this is also very straightforward, but again, not something to be taken lightly. Metadata, so once it's added to a piece of content, you have these what they call content list widgets or even metadata widgets, right? Where you can see, and this, by the way, is Luma. I think this is a Luma slide that we used for inspiration. But basically here you can tell you add a metadata and you can add serve the metadata in a content list, and this way people know who's the owner. This is corporate news from HR, for example, right? Or HR created from HR leads, or something related to a benefit. So metadata really does add context to users. So it's not just something that folks can use and filter on, right? But also something that can add context and let your users, your employees, be less lost in the content once they actually land on it. Because at the end of the day, right, even if you have the first search first mentality, folks come in, search, they find the page, click on the page, great. But once they're on the page, they still need to know the owner of the page, where the page comes from, where it lives in the ecosystem. And that's what metadata really does. Well, helps create that context. Um, this is just a slide. I think also this was one inspired by LumApps, where kind of the one and done approach. You create content once, you give it a certain metadata, and you let it kind of do its work to deliver it into multiple areas of the site, multiple sites, right? It really depends on the configurations. I can create an announcement for a specific sales team, right? And I'll say the sales team has a landing page, and there's sub sales teams that have spaces, and the space has like sales news, right? So and those teams can live in there could be global teams, right? But let's say I want to create a piece of content, a sales document. I want to push it out so that all the global sales teams see it, right, on their specific spaces. So I can do it with metadata. I create the content labeled with the sales metadata, publish, and as long as those spaces are configured correctly, it'll display in all those spaces, all the landing pages, and even all those different sites, right? One and done. Now, the content itself is unique, right? So the content is not created multiple times; it's created only once. It's a very important point. Created once only, but is delivered to multiple areas at once. That's a very powerful way to use metadata. especially in combination with segments or groups to highlighted groups, right? Where you can kind of really uh, target content using segments and make sure that land on the specific page or pages or spaces that have the right metadata configurations. So that combination is very, very powerful for content delivery. Um, and by the way, I have one point here about duplicates, right? A lot of folks, a lot of customers, they say that, hey, we really hate duplicates, because a lot of times we create content once on this site, once on that site, and we have a global enterprise search like on Conveyor or Glean, and the content's like created in 2 or 3 different places, and then like we don't know which one's the most updated one, right? That's a big problem. So really having good metadata strategy, right? Really not just it's not just doesn't just create the delivery simple and easy, but it really avoids duplicity, I guess. I'm not sure, and creates a better ex- uh, search experience and better content integrity for your employees. So highly recommended to have a metadata strategy for content delivery mechanisms to avoid this duplicate yeah, pain points.
Yeah, well, this will be paramount in order to, well, to enrich your information and to make it a pillar of your data strategy at the global level for your company.
Yep. And so here, next topic, this is pivoting all to 180 degrees. Just talked about metadata for architecture, delivery, discovery, right? Now we're doing 180-degree pivot, going to metadata for analytics. And this is for all you folks who love to analyze BI, your favorite BI tools, and like to consume data and get more knowledge about who is using what, where, how, one content, multiple contents. So having a good, clean metadata strategy will allow you to consume more accurate analytics. Here's an example in the screenshot. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but let me just go back to here. I took it literally from here. You go to your site analytics, go to content tab. Right here, you have metadata amongst other things, and you want to filter or some specific metadata, right, that are or contents that has specific metadata. Here, Misha's blog. Okay, so I filter on that. So there's 2 visitors, not much, but we're not a big org, and so here we had visits, and we have so I can see how many who the author was and which contents were visited for me that had Misha's blog metadata. And this actually shows me the collection, not just a view per page, but the value here is when I filter on this use case. Let's say Misha's blog is a use case, right? Uh, I can filter on this one because I have all the contents that are with this blog. And let's say your CXO's blog, you want to filter on that, see how many views they had over the course of a month. So this shows you how many pages there are with any content in totality that has uses this metadata over the course of 30 days. So you can obviously change filters, go back in time. So it's a very valuable use case. And then this way you can report upwards or downwards to show who's, and then kind of combine it with segment data, where are folks visiting from, right? And gonna get a little bit more granular. And this way it shows better reporting, better understanding of who's visiting, who's not visiting, and how to improve the data flows better. So metadata is it's very important to make sure it's baked into your templates at the onset, right? And because this will really give you much more accurate data. The earlier metadata is mapped to content correctly, the better the data is going to be in the long term. So this is another function of metadata for analytics. Time is flying, Ivo. We only have a few minutes left. So let me go through these relatively fast. So metadata for architecture. This is a really good one. So here are use cases, right? Let's say I'm an admin and I want to know, well, how many landing pages there are, or how many like level 2 pages there are, or just like from the backend perspective. Like, let's say I want to go to my landing pages content type here, and I go to my landing pages content, which I have here, and I have a whole bunch of contents, but I want to know which ones are primary pages, because I want to impact primary pages. I want to make sure that these primary pages are really most up to date. So I want to filter on those. So we have a strategy here, landing page type as a platform metadata, and this helps me. I can click on primary, or like this is the first layer metadata, and this shows me exactly how many landing pages there are, level one level one pages, right? And I can see it very clearly. LumApps, I should have really prefaced with this. Unlike other tools, intranets, SharePoints and Jives and Unilys, whatever, right? Everybody, they all kind of have structured. Everything is in a hierarchy, right? Everything is kind of stuck in a place. LumApps, to its benefit, in my opinion, it's actually a flat architecture. So you can really create the architecture levels using metadata, but the content doesn't really live in a place. So it's really, it's very nimble. It can move to here or there, right? It's really, it could be level up, level down. Really, it's about how the content is included in the experience of the platform for the user, and less so how it is in the back office. The back office part is really controlled with this architecture, with this metadata approach type, where you can label pages in certain ways, and you can be as creative as you want. But this is just one example of how hierarchy and architecture can work. There's other examples we talk about with EVO specifically, that's less so about structure in the back office, more about structure in the front, and structure for search. That's where metadata. That's what we're going to talk about later for location metadatas, or team metadatas, or so certain contextual topics, right? That's going to also help structure and create certain levels of architecture to structure data for search and AI consumption. That's a different topic. But here specifically, it's more about content hierarchies that I want to display. And lastly is really about content governance. And we'll talk about roles in about a month or so. But the point here is that as a user, as an admin, I have access to pretty much everything, right? But maybe you have some users who you want to give us limited scope. Make sure folks stay in their lane. And this is really what this does. So here's an example of a screenshot now, a user on my platform, and this user has a much more limited scope. They're in their lane. They only see team content that's relevant to them, and that's really controlled with a very carefully curated metadata roles approach, role-based metadata approach that I've shown here in the screenshot. Again, we'll talk about this specifically with roles later, but this is just as a surface level that metadata does help with structure and governance as well as everything else we've mentioned. So these are the 8 functions that the metadata plays in LumApps. Your feedback matters. Please tell us what you like to hear more about. How'd you like our topics? Are we too fast, too slow, in the middle? Positive feedback, negative feedback, any feedback matters. To give us feedback, please go on the Hive on our partner page space. Simply search for partner ADC and click to take the ADC live survey. You'll see the survey here, and you can take the surveys. This I already have an example here, but you can fill out the survey and tell us what you think. And the survey, by the way, is using our advanced survey widget, native LumApps' out-of-the-box design system, and it allows you to launch surveys, campaigns, trivias, all sorts of things that very native to the product design. And what's next? Ivo, you want to tell us about what's next?
Yeah, of course. For example, the next time, in 2 weeks from now, what we are going to do is that we are going to speak more about how to use the LumApps metadata out of LumApps and in the search engine. So this is more about your data strategy, the global data strategy that we have already been speaking about when we were speaking about the analytics and the data and everything else, right? Then, in 1 month from now, when Misha will be off, I will be speaking about micro apps. So this is a subject that is a very, very popular. I'm sure that you have seen the article on the Hive by Tracy just yesterday, right? And that was about the MyBuzz micro application, micro app, sorry. Well, in this case, what we are going to do together is that we are going to create a micro app that will display personalized content focused on a very specific individual. So you, the most important person in the internet. So leveraging an external API, and so we will see how do you develop a micro app with a few clicks in order to pass the identity of the current user to an external API thanks to the connectors? How can you securely retrieve content for the current user and from an external API and bring it back into the LumApps context? All this in a transparent way and in a secure way. And that is all for the next month. I think that your feedback is very, very important about the future because that could determine the content of our future ADC live episodes. So, well, what would you like to see next? If you have an idea, please reach out, leave a comment, and participate. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ivo. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.